Hey everyone, and welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are taking a deep dive into something super fascinating, rewiring our brains for happiness.
Ooh, I like that.
We've got this guide here that goes deep into the science behind dopamine and how we can kind of hack it
Hmm.
for more lasting joy. You know how sometimes the simplest things just can't compare
Yeah,
to the thrill of getting a notification or that instant gratification hit.
totally.
So we're going to unpack why that is and what we can do about it.
I love it. Let's dive in.
Yeah. Okay, so to kick things off, tell me a little bit about dopamine overload.
Well, think of dopamine as our brain's reward chemical. And it's not just about pleasure,
Right.
it's about motivation, habit formation. But when we're constantly hit with all this high dopamine stimuli, our brains kind of adapt.
Mm.
It's almost like developing a tolerance, like you need more and more caffeine to get that same kick.
Oh, so we get desensitized to the good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then it creates this kind of vicious cycle where mundane everyday tasks, they feel boring. So we seek out more intense hits, which makes us even more desensitized. And then the first step to kind of rewiring is recognizing when we're in this loop.
Okay, got it. So how do we break free? This guide talks about something called dopamine fasting.
Yes.
What does that even mean?
So dopamine fasting is basically taking strategic breaks from those highly stimulating activities.
Oh, okay.
It's like hitting reset on your brain's reward system.
So give me an example. What would that look like?
So think about it like this. A weekend without social media.
Oh, wow.
Maybe you swap your sugary snacks for healthier options, or even just designate a few hours each day to be completely tech-free.
Okay, that feels a little bit more doable than a full-on digital detox.
Exactly. The key is to just find what works best for you.
Right.
Some people do like timed fasts, like 24 hours once a week. Others focus on specific activities to limit like gaming or binge watching. There's even research showing that short dopamine fasts can actually improve focus and motivation over time.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just about feeling good, but actually functioning better overall.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, but let's be real. Completely cutting things out, cold turkey can be tough.
It can be very tough.
Yeah.
That's why setting boundaries is super important.
Yeah.
It's about creating a more sustainable relationship with those high dopamine activities.
Okay.
Right.
So instead of saying, I'm never going to watch TV again, it's more about setting those realistic limits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe you set a timer for your social media scrolling,
That's a good idea.
or you designate specific times for checking emails. You could even do tech-free meals.
Yeah.
Put your phone away and just be present with the people you're with.
Right.
It's about being mindful of how you spend your time and your energy.
So it's kind of like building a fence around these potentially addictive activities
Yes.
to prevent them from taking over.
That's a great analogy. It's about creating that structure that supports your overall well-being. It might be a little tricky at first, but honestly, the rewards are totally worth it.
Okay.
When you reduce that constant bombardment, you start to appreciate the smaller joys again.
It's like recalibrating your taste buds. Once you cut back on the processed food, you start to savor the
Yes.
natural sweetness of fruits and vegetables.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets even more interesting. So this guide talks about replacing those dopamine spikes with more mindful activities.
Okay, so what would be some examples of those mindful alternatives? Let's say it's the end of a long day and my brain is just screaming for a social media scroll.
Yeah.
What's the antidote to that?
Well, how about instead of reaching for your phone, you go for a short walk?
Hmm.
Even just 15 minutes outside can totally shift your mood and focus.
That's true. I've heard that being in nature can actually lower cortisol, the stress hormone.
Yes,
So it's like a double win, less stress and more mindfulness.
totally.
Yeah.
You could also try deep breathing exercises or just a few minutes of meditation. Even simple things like paying attention to your breath or noticing the sensations in your body
Right.
can help you shift gears.
So it's about being present in the moment rather than escaping into that digital world.
Yeah, you got it. And these mindful activities, they're not just about calming the mind. They're also about cultivating joy in a different way.
Okay, and that brings us to a key concept here, finding more balanced sources of joy.
Yes.
So this guide mentions mindfulness quite a bit. But for those who aren't familiar, can you explain what mindfulness actually means in this context?
Sure, mindfulness is simply paying attention to the present moment without judgment.
Right.
It's about savoring simple experiences like the taste of your coffee or the feeling of the sun on your skin.
So instead of chasing that next dopamine hit, we're training our brains to find pleasure in the everyday.
Exactly. And what's so great is mindfulness can be practiced anywhere, anytime.
Well, that's good.
Meditation is a great way to cultivate it, but you can also be mindful while walking, eating, even doing the dishes.
That's true. I feel more relaxed just thinking about it.
It's a really powerful tool for rewiring your brain for happiness. But mindfulness, it's just one piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
There are other important elements like setting meaningful goals.
Okay, now we're talking. Tell me more about that. How does goal setting tie into all of this dopamine rewiring?
So setting and working towards meaningful goals taps into a different kind of dopamine release, one that's more sustainable and fulfilling.
Okay.
Think about the satisfaction you feel when you complete a challenging project or you learn a new skill.
Oh, yeah. That sense of accomplishment is definitely a huge mood booster.
Right.
And it feels like a much healthier form of motivation than constantly looking for external validation or instant gratification.
For sure. Absolutely. And research actually shows that progress towards goals triggers dopamine release in a way that reinforces positive behavior.
So it's like creating a positive feedback loop.
Exactly. You set a goal,
Yeah.
you make progress, you feel good,
Yeah.
and that motivates you to keep going.
Love that. And speaking of powerful connections, this guide also highlights meaningful relationships.
Yes.
I mean, human connections got to be essential for happiness.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Spending time with loved ones, having deep conversations, laughing with friends, those are some of the most rewarding experiences we can have.
Right.
And they don't rely on those artificial dopamine spikes.
But in our hyper-connected world, it's so easy to put those digital interactions ahead of real-life ones.
Yeah.
So how do we shift that balance?
It takes conscious effort.
Hmm.
Try scheduling regular quality time with your loved ones.
Okay.
Maybe a weekly tech-free dinner or a weekend outing.
Right?
Put your phones away when you're together and just be fully present.
Right.
These small changes can make a big difference.
I love that. It's about creating space for those genuine connections to flourish.
Exactly.
Now, there's one more element I wanted to touch on. The link between physical health and mental well-being.
It's undeniable. Exercise releases endorphins, which are natural mood boosters.
Right.
When you feel good physically, it's easier to feel good mentally and emotionally.
And let's not forget about nutrition.
Of course.
Eating a balanced diet helps stabilize blood sugar,
Yes.
which has a direct impact on mood.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's all interconnected. Taking care of your physical health creates that solid foundation for rewiring your brain for happiness.
It's amazing how much we're learning about this intricate connection between our brains, our bodies, and just our overall well-being.
It really is fascinating. And the more we understand about these connections,
Yeah.
the better equipped we are to make those positive changes.
Speaking of change, rewiring your brain for happiness sounds kind of like a marathon, not a sprint.
You're absolutely right. It's a gradual process, not some quick fix. This guide really emphasizes the importance of patience.
Right.
You're basically building new habits, rewiring neural pathways, and that takes time and consistent effort.
It's like learning a new language or training for a marathon. You can't expect to be fluent or running 26 miles overnight.
Exactly.
It's about showing up every day and trusting the process.
Yeah, and just like with any skill you're learning, it's so important to celebrate those small victories along the way.
I love that. It's so easy to get focused on the end goal that we forget to acknowledge how far we've already come. Right.
Can you give me some examples of those small wins we should be celebrating?
Absolutely. So every time you resist that urge to mindlessly scroll through social media,
Yes.
each time you stick to your tech-free dinner commitment, each time you choose a mindful walk over binge watching, those are all victories worth celebrating.
It's like giving yourself a high five for making a choice that aligns with your goals.
Exactly.
Even if it feels small at the time, it's still contributing to the bigger picture.
Precisely. And, those small wins create a sense of momentum, which just fuels your motivation to keep going. But, let's be real.
Yeah.
We're all human, and there will be times when we slip up.
Like when you're having a super stressful day and suddenly you find yourself 3 hours deep in an Instagram rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there.
Totally.
And actually, this guide emphasizes the importance of flexibility.
Okay.
Life is full of ups and downs. It's unrealistic to expect perfection.
Right.
It's more about progress, not perfection.
So it's okay to stumble as long as we get back on track. Exactly. It's like learning to ride a bike. You
Yeah.
know, you're going to fall a few times, but you get back up, dust yourself off, and keep practicing.
And each time you get back on, you become a little more balanced, a little more skilled.
That's a great way to put it. And as you go on this journey of rewiring your brain for happiness, you'll start to develop a deeper understanding of what truly brings you joy. The activities, the people, the experiences that light you up and nourish your soul.
That reminds me of a quote I heard once. Happiness is not a destination. It is a way of life. It's about cultivating those sources of joy on a daily basis.
I love that. And as you cultivate those sources of joy,
Yeah.
you'll notice a shift in your overall energy and well-being. It's like a ripple effect that extends outward.
You mean our personal happiness can actually have a positive impact on the people around us?
Absolutely. When you're feeling more grounded and content,
Right.
you're more likely to be patient, compassionate, and present in your interactions with others. You're less reactive to stress and more resilient in the face of challenges.
So by taking care of our own well-being, we're also contributing to a more positive and supportive environment for those around us.
Exactly. It's a beautiful cycle. And it all starts with that commitment to rewiring our brains for happiness, to understanding the science behind our emotions and making conscious choices that support our long-term well-being.
It's empowering to realize that we have more control over our happiness than we might think.
Right.
It's not just about luck or circumstance, it's about the daily practices and choices we make.
Couldn't agree more. And the beauty is there are so many resources available to support us on this journey.
Yeah.
Books, podcasts, online communities, therapists, coaches. There's a whole world of support out there.
This guide is just one example. It's like a roadmap for navigating the complex terrain of our brains and emotions.
And as you delve deeper into this topic,
Yeah.
you'll discover new insights, new techniques, new perspectives that resonate with you. It's a lifelong journey of learning and growth.
It's like exploring this vast and fascinating landscape. There's always something new to discover, something new to learn.
And the more we learn about ourselves,
Yeah.
about how our minds work, the more we realize that happiness is not this fixed state. It's a dynamic process, a skill we can cultivate and nurture throughout our lives.
So for anyone listening who's feeling inspired to embark on this journey of rewiring their brain for happiness,
Yeah.
where do they even begin?
I would say the first step is to cultivate a sense of curiosity. Start paying attention to your own patterns, your own habits, your own triggers.
Okay.
What are the things that consistently bring you joy?
Right.
And what are the things that tend to drain your energy or leave you feeling depleted?
It's about becoming an observer of your own mind and noticing those subtle cues that your body and your emotions are sending you.
Exactly. And as you start to pay closer attention,
Yeah.
you'll notice patterns emerging. You'll start to see the connections between your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors.
It's like becoming a scientist of your own inner world.
I love that analogy. And as you become more attuned to your own inner landscape, you can start experimenting with different techniques and practices.
Okay.
Try out mindfulness exercises, explore different forms of movement, experiment with different dietary approaches.
It's about finding what works for you, what feels authentic and sustainable in your own life.
And remember, there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
What works for one person may not work for another. So be patient with yourself, be curious, and be willing to try new things.
It's about embracing the journey with all its twists and turns and trusting that you have the power to create a life that is filled with more joy, more meaning, and more fulfillment.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
And if I can leave you with one final thought,
Please do.
remember that happiness is not a destination. It's a state of being, a way of life. It's about cultivating those inner resources, resilience, gratitude, compassion, mindfulness that allow us to navigate life's challenges with grace and to savor its simple pleasures with deep appreciation.
It's about finding that inner peace and contentment that radiates outward, creating a ripple effect of positivity that touches the lives of everyone around us.
And that's a journey worth taking.
Wow, what an insightful conversation. I feel like we really covered so much today, and I'm definitely walking away with a renewed sense of hope and possibility.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's been great sharing these ideas with you, and I hope that everyone listening is feeling inspired to take some of these concepts and try to apply them in their own lives.
Before we wrap up, I did want to touch on something we briefly mentioned earlier, the idea that our own personal happiness can actually create this ripple effect, impacting those around us.
It's a powerful concept. You know, when we prioritize our own well-being,
Yeah.
when we make those conscious choices to cultivate joy and resilience, it's not just good for us individually, it actually has a positive impact on our relationships, our communities, even the world at large.
It's like that saying, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yes.
When we're feeling good, when we're radiating positivity and compassion, it creates a more supportive and uplifting environment for everyone around us.
Exactly. And it all starts with that individual commitment to rewiring our brains for happiness, to understanding the science behind our emotions, and making choices that really align with our long-term well-being.
So if you're listening to this and feeling inspired to embark on this journey, just remember you don't have to do it alone.
Absolutely.
There are so many resources out there to support you.
This guide is just one starting point.
Oh, wow.
There are tons of books, articles, podcasts, online communities, therapists, coaches, a whole network of support out there waiting to help you along the way.
And we'd love to hear from you. What are your biggest takeaways from this deep dive?
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges you're facing when it comes to rewiring your brain for happiness? Share your thoughts and questions on our social media channels.
Yes,
We're all in this together,
we are.
and we can learn so much from each other's experiences.
Absolutely. It's all about connection support and shared learning. We're so excited to continue this conversation with all of you.
And that's a wrap on this episode of The Deep Dive. We hope you enjoyed exploring the fascinating world of dopamine and discovering how we can hack it for lasting joy. Remember, happiness is not a destination, it's a journey. It's a practice, a way of life.
Well said.
And the more we understand about the science of our emotions, the more empowered we become to create a life that is truly fulfilling.
Until next time, keep diving deep, keep exploring, and keep seeking those sources of joy that light you up from within.
See you on the next Deep Dive.